Breaking news. Jaylen Brown gets traded to the Philadelphia 76ers for some draft capital and Paul George. Let's talk about it. Yo, what's up, guys? Newsom Premier back with another video. Today, I wanted to discuss that big blockbuster trade that happened yesterday throughout the NBA, which sent Jaylen Brown to Philly for some draft capital and Paul George. I wanted to talk about it a little bit, talk about who won the trade, and just give my overall thoughts on it. So let's get into it. So, obviously, Jaylen Brown, in my opinion, I definitely knew he was going to get traded. He did the thing on Twitch on the stream. The Boston Celtics were severely criticized after losing that Game 7 to Philadelphia, which he coincidentally gets traded to in the offseason. And people were definitely not fond of Boston in that moment. So Jaylen Brown, went on the move. And I didn't necessarily think Jaylen Brown was going to get traded to Philadelphia. Honestly, I thought Atlanta would have been a good choice. Portland would have been a good choice. But I wasn't saying Philadelphia wasn't a good choice. I just didn't see it on the radar, to be honest with you. And, yesterday, around the afternoon, we get the news from Shams that Boston and Joe Mazur were trading Jaylen Brown to Philly. And if I'm being honest with you, obviously I didn't see this coming. But this is a massive dub for the Philadelphia 76ers because obviously we know that, they got swept by New York and, it was disappointing for Philadelphia fans. And this isn't a bad team. I don't think it was a great team before this trade. Tyrese Maxey was that franchise cornerstone and he still is. But bringing a guy like Jaylen Brown over, to your team without giving up, barely anything. That they gave up a first-round pick in 2 years, a 2028, and I believe a 2031. And if I'm being honest with you, all you have to give up is that and Paul George, a guy who's 36 years old, a guy who clearly isn't in his prime anymore, for a guy that was I believe, close to a top 5 MVP candidate. In, last season, I feel like Philly came up with a big win here on, the spectrum. And to be honest with you, I just think that him, Tyrese Maxey, and VJ Edgecombe are going to anchor this team. And depending how good Joel Embiid is, next season, we'll see how he plays as well. He can become, back on the top of the NBA like he was 3 years ago. But I just feel like Boston really took an L here in terms of who they got back in return. And I feel like this team, besides Jason Tatum and Derek White, yes, they acquired Mitch Robinson, but I just feel like it's a little depleted now. And we all knew Jaylen Brown was going to get traded, but who they were going to get back in return was the huge question for me. And I just feel like they just really suffered from this trade because, number one, yes, we know how good Tatum is, but we all know that Boston, Paul George doesn't fit that team's timeline, in my opinion. I feel like if they would have gotten back a young player who, is very versatile, a very good two-way player, that would have fit their timeline way better. But I just feel like Paul George in Boston won't be a good fit. And I feel like now he's starting to get, shipped around a little bit. Obviously, Sixers picked him up. And then, now he's going to Boston. But I just feel like Paul George, I don't know, bro. I just feel like, is it really going to work out with him in Boston? Are they going to really have chemistry together, Paul George and Jason Tatum? Will Boston really be that number 1 seed in the East again? I think there are extreme question marks for this Boston team. And, you can never count them out necessarily. But I'm just not fond of this team currently, and you just gotta hope for Boston fans. Boston fans just have to hope that Paul George can be, a great sharpshooter for them. Derek White can continue to be a great two-way player, and Jason Tatum can be healthy so he can anchor that team as much as he can. But I'm just not fond of this Boston team. I just feel like Philadelphia can become a top 5 seed in this Eastern Conference because I think Tyrese Maxey is one of the 15 to 20 best players in basketball. I think that VJ Edgecombe is one of the most talented players in the NBA right now. And I just feel like Jaylen Brown is arguably a top 10 player in basketball. And pair that up, Joel Embiid, the paint, which he's not, the most valuable player on that team as of now. But, he's not a bad player. He's still a guy who we know is a great shooter. Defense isn't great, but, it's Joel Embiid. He's a name. He's a household name. I believe he's 32 right now. He's getting older. But if you can get, 21 points, 9 rebounds, 4 assists out of Joel Embiid on average going into this 2026-2027 season, in that season, that would be a big W. As long as Joel Embiid can be somewhat valuable and play somewhat into his strengths, then I feel like he can contribute into a certain way for this Philly team. And I can see this team winning 50 to 52 games, 100%. And I can see them battling with Toronto, battling with a team like Detroit, even though I'm a very huge fan of that Detroit team. They can be a really good contender in this Eastern Conference. And, LeBron can still be on the move to go to Philly. I don't think he is going to Philly. But, there's a chance. But I think he is 100% going to Golden State just because I could just see Steph Curry and LeBron pairing up together. However, Philly says they have interest in him, so you never know. I don't know. I'm not gonna say it's 100% he's going to San Fran, but it's either San Fran or Philadelphia. I really don't know. I don't know, but it's one of those teams, and one of those teams only. But let's see how this season plays out for Philadelphia. This was a great trade. I would give this an A+ trade for Philadelphia and a D+ trade for Boston. Paul George doesn't suck. And yes, I guess they get a first-round pick. But 2 first-round picks actually Boston gets. But, this isn't a good move for Boston. And this, doesn't help the team in any way. But we'll see what happens. I'm out.